Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Conversations with the Soul. I'm Rita Hickman, and I'm a body-mind expert. I'm a shiatsu massage therapist. I'm an intuitive master healer, and I'm also an Asian medicine energy worker. I know, that's a lot, isn't it? But it's stuff that I've really worked on and developed and put in the time and effort over the last 15 years or so to really kind of shape my life in that direction, because these are the things that matter the most to me. You know, those skills and those qualities. Good morning, Barbara. How wonderful to see you. Those skills and those qualities are really what I knew I needed to learn and to have in order to create, in order to shape my life. Because I came from a place of having a lot of triggers. Hi, Sulina. Nice to see you. I came from having a lot of triggers. I came from having a lot of doubts and fears and living in a big space of anxiety. And no more snow. I know, it melted again. We don't have much. But thanks for following it. I know, isn't this a great view? I love this view. And thanks for checking in. So, yeah, I spent the last 15 years becoming this person that I wanted to become. And kind of like Tony Robbins, he came from a tough upbringing too. All sorts of horrible stories of when he was a kid. And he talks about how he purposely shaped his life. And you know what? When we hit a bottom of some sort, when we, decide we can't feel that much pain or that much difficulty, or we're going through a trauma or divorce or heartbreak, something like that, when we realize we don't want to and we can't take anymore, good morning, Selena, then we start to realize we have to shape our own life, because we've spent the majority of our time up until now letting everybody else shape our lives, letting everybody else determine for us who we need to be and what we need to do and what's the right thing to do. And when you hit a bottom, Kathy's here. Stay on for a few minutes because I want to thank you properly. So, hi, Jan. When you go through this stuff, when you finally hit a point where you've got nothing to lose. Hi, Margie. When you've got nothing to lose, that's when you realize you take control of your life again. And a lot of us, we are so strong and so capable and so amazing in a million ways. We've learned how to fix everybody else's life and how to navigate troubles and difficulties. We've learned how to do that. And so we don't hit that bottom. We don't hit the bottom that we say, no more, enough, I can't do this anymore. And that's really almost the blessing that came to me, is because I'm someone who has a highly sensitive nervous system. Hi, Mark. Nice to see you. I'm someone who would freak out, who would hide a lot, and couldn't function very well. And so around 30, when I finally got physically sick enough, I said, I can't follow anybody else's rules anymore. I just can't do it. And that's when, all the really great work finally started to happen, is when I realized that I have to shape my life the way that it works best for me, and to stop following along in what everybody else thought I should be or who I should be. So I wanted to do a little shout out to Kathy. Kathy, at the very last minute, I think I gave her like 15 minutes heads up. She came online with my very second ever webinar last night, and she did my intro, and she did an amazing job. And if you weren't on that webinar last night, that's okay, because I don't know why it's okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, my view is kind of like a Robert Frost novel, Mark. I just love it. So if you weren't there, that's okay too, because I'm going to be doing one more webinar next week, and it's ramping up to a program that I'm doing. So I have so much gratitude. I spent like 2 days thinking, who's going to introduce me? My sister did it last time, and I'm like, I can't have my sister do it again. So I thought, who would do it? And I kept thinking, Kathy might do it. Kathy might do it. And then, I only gave her, as I said, like 15 minutes. And she hopped on, and good morning, Michelle. Nice to see you. She hopped on, and she did an amazing job. and made me feel like $1,000,000. And thank you. That's such a huge piece. So how are we talking about why you don't have to be a robot today? So I love to use my own life as examples on how to get through the challenges that we have. So I did this webinar, and it's launching up to, thank you, Kathy. You're the best too. And it's launching up to a 10-week coaching program that I'm doing. And I'm in a coaching program to help me create this coaching program. You know, I've worked with people for years on how to navigate this stuff, and I've really come down to a science on how we change our neural connections in our brain and how we change our nervous system, you know, the triggers and the things like that. Because everywhere I looked, when I first started to, you know, get into this stuff, all the metaphysical people, you know, they would talk about these platitudes. You know, they would talk about let go and let God. They would talk about, you know, just believe, or, you know, all of that stuff. And I sat there thinking, what the hell does that mean? What does it mean? And so I started asking people, and they'd, you know, gurus and highly important and valuable spiritual people, and they'd say, there's no manual, there's no way to do this. And I sat there thinking, I've got 1,000,000 triggers. I react to everything. I want to hide like all the time. I get depressed on a regular basis, and my health is starting to break down. And you're going to tell me there's no manual? I just need to let go and let God? I said, enough. I need to figure this out, because clearly nobody else knows what's going on. Nobody else knows how to do this. And this dove me into Asian medicine, and this dove me into cultural medicines and the physicality that everybody's been ignoring around mental and emotional health and how we move and grow. Instead, the biggest thing is you know, energy healing and change your thinking and change your thoughts and law of attraction, and everything changes. And all that's true. But have you ever tried to change how you feel by, you know, how you physically feel? Let's say you've got cramps. Have you ever tried to change how you feel by changing your thoughts? It helps. Yeah, it eases it up a little bit. But you still might have serious cramps in your leg or your hip or your stomach that's getting in the way of you doing anything. So just changing your thoughts is like pushing this giant boulder up a hill. I think there's a Greek tragedy about somebody. Hi, Anne, nice to see you. About somebody trying to constantly push a boulder up a hill. The gods punished him. And so he spent all of this time never being able to get to the boulder to the top of the mountain. And that's what it's like to only focus on metaphysics or only focus on counseling when healing emotionally has so much to do with our physicality. And this is a real foundation of Asian medicine. And so I latched onto this. And it's a foundation of a lot of Native American cultures too. How do you change the physical so you can affect the mental and the emotional? So I spent all of this time, you know, and all of this energy really coming up with this process, with a process that helps us work through this stuff. And I will give a great example with this webinar. So this morning, you know, I had about 100 people watch the webinar last night. Nobody signed up for my Intuitive Healer Breakthrough calls. Nobody signed up last night. And so this morning, it was interesting. I give myself about 10, 15 minutes every morning to look at how I'm feeling, to look at what I'm thinking, and let it come up and honor it and respect it and give it a welcome place. So I don't push that stuff away. And so this morning I was listening to what I was saying, and all I could keep hearing was, wow, you're such an idiot. You really screwed that up. I can't believe you did this. I can't believe, you know, you're so lazy. You were supposed to put out, 20,000 emails before this, and you were supposed to remind people because they have to be reminded, 15 to 30 times before they even move forward. And I had these negative thoughts in my head. And I've anchored enough to not be too judgmental about what I think or what I feel, to just kind of watch it, to be that Buddhist observer. And I said to myself, wow, that's really interesting that I'm thinking those thoughts. That's fascinating. I didn't really realize I was still working through some of that stuff. I was still working through, those patterns and there's those messages in my brain, because they're patterns. They're patterns of thinking that we're used to. And if we haven't thought those things in a while, if we compartmentalize them, around something that was emotional or it was a long time ago, yes, Mark, you're absolutely right. Emotional pain and physical pain can be healed, guaranteed. So, I mean, but these negative thoughts, they're a pattern they're just a habit. They're a bad habit. And they're usually based in messages that we were given when we were young. And then we filed them away and we didn't think about them again until something brings them up, like doing this webinar where nobody signed up for my for my intuitive healer breakthrough calls, and so I had these thoughts and I said, how really fascinating and really interesting that I'm working through this, that I have these thoughts still coming up into my head. And as I said, because I've got this process, the next thing that came into my head, I honored it for about 10-15 minutes. I said, wow, thank you very much for letting me know that these thoughts are still sort of controlling me, that these thoughts are still taking up energy and wasting my time and wasting my life. Thank you for coming up so that I can do something about you, so that I can help you go from this painful situation that you're in, and move you or evolve you to a more balanced place. Yeah, PTSD is the worst. But there is a process that I went through, Mark, in order to get through PST, in order to minimize and dial down this emotional pain. Because I had so much emotional pain that if I didn't find a way to heal it, if I didn't find a way to figure it out, I was going to self-destruct, guaranteed. So I honored it. I honored what I thought, and I said to myself, oh, you know what, Rita, sometimes that is true. Sometimes you're lazy. Sometimes you don't follow up. Sometimes you drop the ball. And in fact, last night I did. I had an appointment with someone and to talk with them, to chat with them at my space. I totally spaced it. Instead, I was thinking about my webinar, and I'm like, nobody signed up for the webinar, and I spaced the appointment. Now I have to make up for that, and all of these things. And I thought, oh God, I'm such a loser, and the thoughts then that come up for me because of all of this repatterning that I've done is, yeah, sometimes that's true. Sometimes it is true that you make mistakes. But you know what? Sometimes you're a rock star. Sometimes you have people like Kathy, who think you're amazing, who think you're funny and beautiful and smart and that you've got it going and you figured it all out. And, and sometimes I am amazing and sometimes I drop the ball. That's true for all of us. I have a couple, there are a couple role models that I really look to in life, and 3 biggies. Hi, Daniel. Nice to see you. 3 biggie role models. One of them is Gandhi. One of them is Mother Teresa. And one of them is Martin Luther King. And the reason these 3, hi Jennifer, nice to see you. The reason these 3 people are role models for me is because they are so imperfect. They're people, or Robin Williams, absolutely. They're people who, they're so imperfect in their life and they achieved phenomenal things. Mother Teresa screwed all sorts of things up. So did Martin Luther King. He threw a lot of people under the bus. He abandoned a lot of people when they needed him. Gandhi did the same thing. He had all sorts of weird, cuddle parties with his great niece and, relationships outside of all of this stuff going on. He had racist beliefs. And this is why these 3 people are big role models of mine, because they achieved these phenomenal impacts on the world while still being complete screw-ups, while still being human beings, still making all the mistakes that they make. And so for us women, especially, and a lot of men as well, but I speak to women because I am a woman, so I can speak pretty well to that point of view. We are taught that we need to mold ourselves into somebody very specific, that we need to mold ourselves into a specific personality, a specific way of being, that we need to be generous, we need to be giving, we need to be on top of things, we need to make sure that everybody's achieving what they need to achieve, that we're the caregivers, that we're the nurturers. We have this mold that we're supposed to fit into, and that everybody is more than happy to give us plenty of advice on how to be that person. You know what, my gift and my genius, the thing that I really learned is about not how to be perfect at being who somebody else wants you to be, but how to be beautiful and okay with exactly who you are and what you're doing. So when these things come up, you don't have to let them hijack you. When my negative thinking came up, I could have years ago, 20 years ago, I was sat in bed and I wouldn't have gotten up till noon. And I would have let my mind spin and go around and around and around. But what you do is when you take some time and you first honor those feelings, you honor those old patterns, which are wounds, that haven't healed yet, those old ways of thinking that might have come down from generations about how, you screwed everything up, why should you even bother? You honor those and you say, thank you for being in my life. I really appreciate it. You make yourself a safe place to be you. And then you remember as quickly as possible that, yeah, sometimes that's true. And a lot of times it's not. A lot of times you're a rock star. A lot of times you're doing a great job. And when you drop the ball, there's going to be benefits from it. Hi, Sharon. How great to see you. Nice to have you on. There's going to be benefits to when you drop the ball. And there's going to be drawbacks to when you do everything perfect. That's just the way that it works. I learned from when I was a kid that horrible things happen, but out of those horrible things, you can create magic and you can create beauty and amazingness, because nothing ever is 100% hell. Nothing is 100% horrible and awful. And this has been validated by, people who've lived through horrible, horrific circumstances a million times worse than mine. Holocaust survivors will tell you the same thing. They'll say in any situation that from the outside looking in, someone looking at it, they'll say, oh my God, that was the worst possible thing that could ever happen to anyone ever. This is horrific. This is a tragedy. To the person who lived through it, they'll say nothing is ever 100% horrific. Nothing is ever 100% devastating. Because in every hard situation, there's always some moments, a moment of beauty, a moment of compassion and connection. And when we're at our worst and when we're at our most vulnerable, this is what actually motivates us to reach out. So when we hit those bottoms, those horrible thoughts and those horrible feelings, those act as a great motivator, like almost a rocket ship to launch us into the next chapter of our life. Because now they're so uncomfortable that we've got to do something different. So when those horrible things happened to you as a kid, or didn't happen to you, or maybe they happened to you older, maybe you were assaulted, maybe you were physically or sexually or emotionally abused, maybe you were abandoned, maybe your family split up when you were young and you didn't have good role models, maybe you grew up in poverty, maybe you went through a tragedy in war, or you lived in a war-torn area. Maybe you had to take care of your brothers and sisters and help them figure it out. Maybe all sorts of things happen to us. It's those things which help shape us. Hi, Susan. Great to see you. It's those things which shape us, which motivate us, which move us in the direction to grow greater than the status quo. I look back on my life now, and I'm able to because I'm mostly on the other side. When you're in the middle of it, trust me, it sucks. But when you're on the other side, and I've heard this time after time after time from women who've been through horrific circumstances, when you get to the other side, you go, you know what? Because this happened to me, it turned me into somebody that is greater and bigger than I ever could have been. It forced me to reach out and be vulnerable and connect with people in a way that I would never want to give up. I would never want to give up, ever, the connection and the vulnerabilities that I learned I can have with people in my life, especially friends like Kathy, Thank you. Especially everybody who comes on these live streams and these tribes. And if you were on the webinar last night, you know, especially, I would never give up that feeling of tenderness and connection and vulnerability that I only got because I had no other choice. Because those thoughts and those feelings forced me to get outside of my comfort zone, because what was in front of me, what was unknown, was less scary than what was known and where I was at. So that's the thing for today. Stop trying to be perfect, because you're not going to be. You're going to be like me. I didn't send out the 15 to 30 reminders. I didn't have everything perfect. I asked my introductory Kathy to to do it 15 minutes beforehand. I flubbed the meeting that I was supposed to have. She's, messaging me on Facebook being like, hey, your studio is dark. And I'm like, oh, no. All of this. We are perfect in our imperfection. We are perfect in all of our screw-ups, because you know how we make the biggest impact on the world is because we keep showing up, we keep being human, and we keep growing and evolving and learning in the direction that matters to us, in a direction of our highest self. And what is our highest self? Our highest self is someone who can have self-compassion for ourselves and compassion for the people that we look at, where we can let ourselves be vulnerable with another human being, which takes us to these heights of experience and feelingness, and if you've never had that experience of letting yourself be vulnerable, completely and completely trust another human being, even if it's just for a few moments, you're missing out. And the only thing that forces us to be there many times, that pushes us past that fear and that hurt and that anxiety, is that we have no other choice. And why do we have no other choice? Because everything went wrong. Because everything got screwed up. Because we screwed everything up. And now we're at a place where we need help. And we need to reach out. So, let yourself be human. Because that's really what we're all looking for. We're not looking for someone to be perfect and to give us the 12 steps to amazing success. That's the old thinking. That's the thinking that keeps you trapped in the fears and the anxiety. There's this book I'm reading called Barking Up the Wrong Tree. And they talk about self-esteem versus self-compassion. And self-esteem is where you say to yourself, I'm amazing, and you keep reinforcing that idea of I'm amazing, I'm beautiful, I'm perfect, I'm awesome. But then you have to live up to that ideal 24/7, every moment of every day. And then you end up feeling like a big fraud. Either that or you're deluding yourself and you're in some narcissistic world where you think you're, better than everybody else, and that's a big burden to carry. And you're never going to move forward. The opposite of having great self-esteem is having low self-esteem. And low self-esteem, it keeps you curious, but it also puts this huge burden of anxiety upon you. It keeps you growing and learning and evolving because you're always reaching for something. You're a seeker. That's never enough. Hi, Diana. Nice to see you. And that's low self-esteem. So that's got all these great benefits to it as well. But if you want to be happy, if you want to be truly successful, it comes down to self-compassion, to that bigger viewpoint that I tapped into today or this morning. So when I went through and I honored and I respected the negative thinking, thanking it for coming up so that I can finally let it know that it's not a screw up, that it has value and worth and is lovable. So happy those thoughts came up, because then I could rewire it. I could connect it to a new thought. And the new thought was, you know what? Sometimes that's true and sometimes it's not. And if I look back on my life, how far I've come is blow away. Totally blow away. So, hi, Bajal. Nice to see you this morning. So that's the direction you want to go. You want to go from dun dun dun, dun to, you know what, everything's going to be okay. Because when you're in that rational Zen level sort of place, that's when your intuition kicks in. That's when you can see and feel everything that's going on around you. And that's when you're able to make the biggest impact. Because now you're not reacting from your felt sense of fear, hurt, and anxiety. Now you are responding from a grounded, rational way that's based both on your experience and your knowledge and your wisdom, hard-won wisdom, and also your felt sense of in your body. Between the two, you can sort through just about anything. You really can. So your homework for today is to pay attention to any negative thoughts that you have. Anything that comes up that says you're an idiot or you screwed that up or why did you bother or it's not worth it or I'm exhausted or I'll never get anywhere. I want you to listen to some of those thoughts and I want you to thank them for being there. I want you to thank them for coming into your conscious mind so that you can do something about them. And then I want you to acknowledge and validate them and say, yes, that's true. Sometimes you are lazy. Sometimes you are a screw up. Sometimes you don't do all the things that you're supposed to do because you've got these relationships that you're nurturing, and you've got your mental and emotional health you want to take care of, and you've got these other priorities, and you've got your kids, and you've got your job. You know, that's true. Sometimes you completely abandon your dreams and you screw everything up. And sometimes you make a huge impact in somebody's life. Sometimes you have just the right thing to say, which puts them on the path and changes their journey for forever. My father-in-law, when I was 20, did one of those things. He, of course, was my father-in-law then. He was my father-in-law by the time I was 28. But what he said to me was, for every problem, there's at least 10 different solutions. And that wisdom stuck with me for forever. And he doesn't even realize or remember that he said those things to me. You know, so we're always doing this. We're always impacting the people around us, whether we realize it or not, in a really positive way, even if it looks negative, even if it looks painful or uncomfortable or isn't supportive. You know, there's benefits to everything. So even when you snap and you're irritable, there's a benefit to it. Somebody, somewhere. So you can give yourself a little bit of compassion for that. So when those thoughts come up, when you have that negative thinking coming up today, thank it, honor it, welcome it, nurture it, and then say, you're right. Absolutely, sometimes that's true. Sometimes that's not true. You know, and think that for about a minute, and then get up and get on with your day. Because the nice thing about a compassionate belief is that it takes just enough judgmentalism away. It takes just enough stress away that you can get up and do something different. That you can get up and keep iterating yourself to awesome and moving in the direction that you really want to go. Okay? So that's your homework for today. Your other piece of homework is, if you haven't scheduled your Intuitive Healer Breakthrough Call, the link's up above. It's on a Calendly sort of thing, and there's times and whatnot that you can schedule it with. And no, it's not a sales call. I'm helping women find the things which are getting in the way of their intuition, which are getting in the way of them taking their next steps. There's usually like 2 or 3 things. And so we can figure them out together. And then if you're ready, if it's a good time for you, as I said, on February 13th, I'm starting my 10-week coaching program. And I'm giving a really great special price because this is a beta program. So it's like 50% off at least from what it's going to end up being. Because I want to go through this program first and let everybody know that, yeah, we're creating this together because I want to create something that benefits and helps people as much as possible. So we're going to go through a beta thing for 10 weeks together. I'm going to be right there, do tons of hand-holding, figure it out, get feedback, you know, create the trainings, do the coaching, and we'll do it together. So if you want to be in on this, because I am amazing a lot of times, and I do know what I'm talking about, this is the best time to get in on this program. So as I said, it's not a sales call. It's actually just a clarity call. Let's get some clarity from it. And if you're also worried about sharing your most vulnerable parts and pieces of yourself, don't worry about it. My focus isn't on therapy. I'm not a therapist. My focus is on the body-mind. It's on about who are you, where are you at, and what can we do to get you where you want to go. That's it. And how does your brain work, and how does your body work, and how can you rewire them so that they start getting, so they stop getting in the way of your life. So you don't have to keep battling how you feel in order to do the thing that you need to do. You don't have to battle the anxiety anymore. You don't have to battle the depression. You don't have to fight your way uphill through how you feel and your emotions and your felt sense anymore. This is what cleans it up. And so it's not about rehashing your story. If you've been in counseling, you're probably sick and tired of your own story. You're sick and tired of all of that past and that history. Instead, we focus on what can you boots on the ground actually do that helps change that rewiring so it stops getting in the way. So there you go. Schedule your call, work on your negative thinking, and I will see you tomorrow morning. I have a great day ahead of me, and I'm so looking forward to it. I'll talk to you later. Bye.